Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. Guys, this book is phenomenal. I'm going to walk you through what I learned today. And guys, just like I've done with some other books, we're just going to go through the first half because you really get what you need in terms of mentality, who the people are with the first half of the biography, right? From where they started to how they got to the top is the important part for us. Because if you're like me and you're young and you're on the ascent, right? You're on the ascent to do something great. We need to understand how to ascend there. And then once we get to the top, we can learn how to stay at the top, right? That's where I think the second half of the biographies are coming into play. That doesn't mean that I don't read entire biographies. Don't get me wrong, I read entire biographies. I will finish this book. But I think it's most important for you and I right now to go over the first half of this book, how Washington got to where he got. So let's just start off right now. Chapter 1. I didn't have much from chapter 1 other than they mentioned briefly Washington's 110 social maxims. And I looked some of these up online, but I'll just give you two that they explained in the book, which I think were great things that we should just always keep in mind. Washington says here, and this is about, you being confident in front of other people, right? Shift not yourself in the sight of others, nor gnaw your nails, right? Don't do things, don't fidget, don't bite your nails, right? Shows your nervousness. Control yourself. And then Washington says here, in speaking to men of quality, do not lean nor look them full in face, nor approach too near them. At least keep a full pace from them. So yeah, guys, just keep those things in mind when you're talking with people, especially people who are powerful, people who are way ahead of you in life, people who have done great things are normally great at psychology. So if you're around people who, like I said, are ahead of you, be careful about exposing your nervousness, about showing them that, maybe this guy isn't confident, right? People are confident in your abilities when you demonstrate confidence, right? Chapter 2, Fortune's Favorite. Washington was always a man who monitored his every move. He quickly grew inured to hardship. He was appealingly modest and distressingly pushy. He had trained his face to mask his emotions. He was a very old young man. And I've been told this so many times in my life too. People are like, wow, you're such an old soul. You're so wise for your age, whatever. And I've always been that way. And people have literally said that to me, that I'm an old young man. So I found that funny. And then chapter 3, I didn't have much. There wasn't really much to talk about in chapter 3, but the one thing I did have here was Washington's own application and diligent study of his duty were the reason for his promotion. Chapter 4, Bloodbath. Washington exposed himself unflinchingly to enormous risk. Errors once discovered are more than half amended. And Washington had unrelenting self-criticism. Chapter 5. Learn the maxim about the people's thoughts while revealing the minimum about your own. Chapter 6. The soul of an army. People are motivated by fear more than kindness. Courage and cowardice originate from the top of an army, right? So guys, we want to be leaders, right? I'm sure if you're watching this video, you want to be a leader. And if you show cowardice, then your army is going to be cowardly, right? Whether you're running a business or whatever it may be, whatever role, leadership role you might have. But if you show courage trickles down from the top as well. So if you're a courageous leader, then the rest of your troops will be courageous. The rest of your employees will be courageous. Insert any term in there that you'd like. I think of employees at a company as troops, right? I forgot who said this, but I think it was Napoleon, maybe. It was Napoleon, that most lessons in life can be explained by warfare. So that's kind of how I evaluate things. And then here, power required distance. Power required distance. Familiarity and intimacy eroded it, right? So as a leader, you can't be familiar. You can't be around your troops all the time, right? If you're distant from them, you'll be able to wield more power. They'll respect you more. But if you're always around them and you're familiar, then they'll probably have less respect for you. Chapter 7, A Votary to Love. Washington's relationship with Martha and Sally Fairfax. That's basically what this chapter was about. Nothing important for us to talk about. Chapter 8. In Chapter 8, he just talks about winning the election in Virginia. I had a few other things written here. I don't think they're important. Let's go to part 2, the planter. Chapter 9, Man of Mode. Washington learned how to exert the maximum leverage with the least force. Right, guys, this is what we want to do. We want the most leverage with the least amount of force. Right? That's where the best opportunities lie. Washington got into a relationship based on practical matters, including personality, character, temperament, and money. Chapter 10, A Certain Species of Property. Washington was firm but fair-minded. He expected his troops to share his work ethic. He had unvarying regularity of his daily routine, and I loved that. I wrote that down because that's the same with me. My daily routine is almost always the same. Not much variation in it. And I love my routine, and it keeps me ultra productive. And man, I think that sticking to a routine also for me, it causes me to have less effort in thinking about the small things. Like, what am I going to eat for lunch today? Right? Like, or where am I going to go this morning? Like, what cafe am I going to go work at? Right? Whatever it is, whatever it might be. If I don't have to think about it and I just have the same routine, then that's me expending less mental energy, because I expend enough mental energy reading, working on the business. So that's how I view that, having that unvarying regularity of the daily routine. And then here, everything he does is by method of system. Chapter 11, The Prodigy. Washington understood the value of silence and largely kept opinions were held to himself. Washington, let all men know thee, but no man... No, that doesn't make sense. Washington said, let all men know thee, but no man know thee thoroughly. Right? So let people know who you are, the kind of person you are, but don't expose everything. Don't expose everything, guys. Some things are better left unsaid. Be courteous to all, but intimate with few. Jesus. He never met any man who could throw a stone so great a distance as himself. And that's just the confidence that you gotta have, man. That's like Napoleon type confidence. I love that. Never knew a man who could throw a stone so great a distance as himself. All right, awesome. Chapter 12, Providence. Religion is the basis for morality and the foundation of any well-ordered polity, which is like population. Washington always feared that he was being watched from afar. Washington admired sobriety and disdained excessive drinking. Chapter 13, A World of His Own. The psychology of debt. Ooh, this is really important, guys. This is the fear that any attempt at a more frugal existence would disclose the truth about a person's actual wealth. Right? So if you live more frugally, you're afraid that people are going to be like, oh, he doesn't have as much money. And you care about other people's opinions and your status amongst other people. So you don't live more frugally, even though it's the more smart decision, right? Because you care about other people and what they think of you. Really important to not get caught in that trap. Washington favored violence only if all else failed. Washington carried the scheme of manufacturing to greater heights than almost any man in Virginia. Chapter 14, I just had one note here. Washington had a desire for privacy and a growing need to entertain people. Chapter 15, shock of electricity. He knew when to speak out and when not to. And then this is a great line from Washington, which I thought was awesome. The unconquerable resolution of our citizens, the conscious rectitude of our cause, and a confident trust that we should not be forsaken by heaven. Chapter 16, the glorious cause. Washington fully looked like the part of military leader, right? You got to look the part and be the part, guys. He possessed the gift of silence and he had great self-command. He was smoothly methodical and solidly reliable. He didn't seek power, but let it come to him. Washington had a fine sense of power, how to gain it, how to keep it, how to wield it. He knew how to talk the language of peace, even as he girded for war. Love that line. One more time. He knew how to talk the language of peace, even as he girded for war. Chapter 17, magnificent bluff. Washington had a view of military leadership that frowned upon camaraderie. Here, enterprises that seem chimerical often succeed because they are unexpected. Secrecy and deception were essential aspects of his repertoire. Again, guys, don't show all your cards. Chapter 18, Land of Freedom. It was sometimes better to miss a major opportunity than barge into a costly error. Washington had a prudent strategy of dodging encounters that played to the enemy's strength. Washington articulated their ideals and scolded their vices almost daily. Talking about his soldiers, his troops. Washington says here, it is necessary for me to have persons that can think for me as well as execute orders. Right? You need to have someone who can execute orders on your behalf, but also think for you. Right? That creates more leverage. Right? Higher leverage, more opportunity to do big things. Right? You got to delegate certain tasks and hire people of major competence to fill those roles. That's what I took away from that. Chapter 19, the heights. He had to learn when to trust his instincts and when to overrule his generals. Washington was sensitive of public opinion, jealous of his image, and willing to listen to others. Fear is contagious in battle, especially among inexperienced troops. To obtain the applause of deserving men is a heartfelt satisfaction. To merit them is my highest wish. To obtain the applause of deserving men is a heartfelt satisfaction. To merit them is my highest wish. Chapter 20, all London afloat. Washington says here that he was employed from the hour of his rising till he retired to bed again. That's how I feel, guys. As soon as I wake up, bang, getting shit done. Like I always tell people, if I'm not totally fried, if my brain is not destroyed at the end of the day, then I didn't do enough. I usually sleep pretty well because of how destroyed my brain is, how much things I've done, how many things I've done in one day. Washington was careful to separate the personal from the political, the man from the mission. Chapter 21, disaster. We must resolve to conquer or die. Right? He also says in the book, his famous line, victory or death. That's a principle that I live by in my life as well, right? If you're not first, you're last. All these quotes, they say the same thing. With this resolution and the blessing of heaven, victory and success will certainly attend us. I will not ask any man to go further than I do. Right? Don't expect more from people than you expect from yourself. All right? Set the example. Lead by example. Washington oscillated between severity and mercy toward his men. This is talking about a battle where he failed. And it says here that he was doomed to fail because he hadn't been given adequate means to succeed. Chapter 22, an indecisive mind. No loyalty surpassed that of a man forgiven for his faults, who vowed never to make them again. Right? If you make a mistake, guys, vow never to make them again, and people will respect you for that. Look for the positives in a bad situation. And this is talking about Washington's loss in New York City when he lost to the British. Washington knew perfectly how to wield silence as a weapon, right? Washington was great at being around people and just staying silent. And I've been pretty good at this in my life too. I think it is a good trait of mine that, sometimes when I'm talking about subjects, I get really excited, but I know when to stay silent and to just sit there listening, right? Listening to people. Chapter 23, the crossing. I wrote here, victory or death, his famous line. Washington refused to retreat. And I wrote here, like Napoleon, right? Napoleon said retreat was the worst thing you could possibly do. Liberties should be affirmed even as they were being temporarily abridged. He didn't pause to savor his victory at Princeton, right? Just like Napoleon, right? Napoleon never sat in his victories. It was never something like, ooh, I won, now we can take a break. No, it was like, what's the next thing? Chapter 24, the busy scenes of a camp. Washington organized a spy network under his supervision, and he used invisible ink, right, in writing notes. And Washington did this to get, inside things from the enemy, right? Deploying spies can help you get a lot of valuable information. He used spies as double agents to spread disinformation. And then here, nothing pleased Washington more than unconditional loyalty. Chapter 25, darkness visible. Washington made a snap judgment to side with the minority view. And it was a costly error in this case. So guys, be careful about making snap judgments. And then here, don't make your losses seem as big as they actually are. I love that. That keeps confidence in your troops, in the people, right? In your organization, whatever it is. Don't make them seem as big as they actually are. Chapter 26, this is the last chapter we're going to go over, guys. Wrapping a demigod over the knuckles. Washington had a reflexive restraint in seeking power, which enabled him to exercise so much of it. One more time. Washington had a reflexive restraint in seeking power, which enabled him to exercise so much of it. And then here, attacking is the only necessary thing to conquer. It makes me think of Napoleon. A lot of things drawn, a lot of similarities drawn between Napoleon and Washington. Washington was always articulate Washington was always articulate when forced to break silence on a painful subject. And then last year, Washington never doubted the need for legitimate criticism. And guys, those are the notes I want to go over today. These are the things that I thought were most important about him, his character traits, who he was as a person, how he ascended to where he ascended in his life. He was an incredible leader. He's the reason why, America is the country it is. And we owe a lot to him. a lot of lessons to be drawn. Rewatch this video. And guys, we're turning ourselves into the leaders that we know we're meant to be, right? I know, and I've known ever since I was young, that I was going to be a great leader. And now I have an absolute addiction with learning from the greats. And I remember Einstein saying one time in a book that, if he had the option of redoing the whole education system, he would say, I would just have these kids learn about people who have done great things in history. That's a real education. And that's why I educate myself the way I do. Because if we want to do great things, guys, we need to learn from the greats. So I hope you enjoy this series that I'm making, all these book reviews. I love doing them, and it's really helpful for me because I'm learning, you're learning, right? That's all that matters. So, all right, guys, I'm going to talk to you soon. This is Blaze of Science signing off. Look out for another book review coming your way in the coming days. Next one on Alexander the Great. Look out for that. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.